Alright, so I want to go over my mobility routine that I use to get stretched out and get ready to squat really good. One of my main issues is that this right hip is very tight and this left hip is much stronger, this left leg is much stronger, and it takes me sometimes a little bit while to get down into a deep squat, especially if I haven't been stretching enough or mobilizing properly. I have a specific routine that's pretty fast, or it's longer than I like it to be, but it sometimes takes me a little while to really get set up and get flexible or supple enough. And kind of what I do is I push these knees out. Well, one thing is I want to get this deep squat position, squat down, and really get keep these heels on the ground while I push these knees out and get these hips, basically ass to ankles. And I have a lot of external rotation at the feet. They're not as straight as I want it to be. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, this right foot here is a little bit more externally rotated. I don't have a good internal rotation on this right hip. So kind of what I do so that I can get down there smoothly is I have a specific routine that I do that I learned from Kstar's videos. And he's actually helped change my life a lot as far as being able to improve my own fitness and personal performance in the gym. So this has kind of been my routine lately, and it's changed over the several months as I've been working out. So let me grab this here. Alright, so the first thing that I do is I use a softball, and the softball is probably one of the best things I've found to really get my high hamstring and this inner bit right here. I roll in and I just really get that stuff, and I just shear across, and that really breaks it up really good. And then what I try to do too is I really try to get in this adductor, which is kind of like, it's pretty hard to lie down against. You know, you usually need a PVC pipe or someone to push down on you. Opposite side, of course. Do both sides. And I just try to get that inner thigh, because one of the things you have to remember is that when you go into a deep squat, is those adductors have to be able to get down there. And a lot of times, not only are adductors weak, they're also very, very tight. And that allows for that knee out position that kstar on the mobilitywod.com talks about a lot. So that's the first thing I do. Second thing I do is I do the hip approximation. So what I do is you'll get this band, and if you've never done this before, it's a little bit, I mean, he shows it in his videos, and it takes a little bit getting used to, but it's kind of like, he says it's a capsule stretch. And what you're doing is you're just turning your body, you're basically driving your knee, or you're driving your femur bone back into the hip of the socket. Now, I don't know if you can see that in the camera. You know, all I'm doing is I'm trying to get this leg here that's on the ground, and I'm trying to get it perpendicular to my hip or to the ground, so that way I can drive it in. I can make little circles and oscillations, and at the same time this band is just trying to pull it out to the side, so that way that hip sinks in a little bit better. And I'll spend about maybe a minute or two on this. And then after I do that, what I do is I lean forward into the hamstring floss. Probably the best position for this for the camera probably be right here. And the hamstring is just pulling back, and as remember, the leg that you're stretching is the leg that's forward, and it's pulling on this back leg here. And as I'm stretching back, locking out, locking out, locking out. And all you're doing is you're trying to drive this, or what I'm trying to do is drive this right femur bone back, this right leg, and really try to get this high hamstring. And at the same time, what I'm doing is I'm drawing in my abdomen, trying to keep a neutral spine. I'm trying to close this space here, this hip crease, so that I can get a basically better hip flexion, or flexing at the hip. And that's the second thing I do. Third thing I do is I do his favorite hip mobility stretch, he says, that Kelly started says, is that pushing the knee out and having the band distract you out this way. Now it's kind of hard to see this in the camera, but I do want you to see this. So you can see where it's pulling right here in the hip, and all I'm doing is I'm bending down, lunging, and letting it pull me back. And I'm just essentially trying to get in the right shape, so that way this hip pulls out and this band pulls back and his knee comes out. I'm tightening my stomach, pushing his knee out, I'm just trying to drive, so that way this knee can come out really good. I do spend a lot of time here because this is the closest position to the squat. And then as I open this up, the problem I do have is this ankle. This is another problem that I've been working on, but then what usually happens is I squat enough to a point where it essentially just makes my ankle straight, or my calves lengthen properly enough. So then I open up this hip, push this. Sometimes I'll help push this knee out. Sometimes I'll wind this thing really back. And actually, what I do is I drop. Sometimes there's a lot of tension on the band, and it'd be kind of tough. So I'll take this kettlebell. I'll put my knee right here to kind of help, or my foot, I should say. That way, it can hold me in place a little bit better as this band pulls me back, and that's been pretty helpful. And the last thing I do is what was the last? Piriformis stretch. So get on the bench, just like this. Lean in, stretch, turn. If I have a setup properly, I'll use hip distraction. I'll get this band and I'll pull back here on this hip. But I'm not always in a good spot for that as far as where I'm at in the gym. So that's what I do. So that way, when I squat, retest, I can get down pretty good. There you go.